Hi, this is Zoindrila again. We are at the third stage of learning campaign setup. So we were talking about pixel targeting, and we were saying that if you do not add pixel, you won't be able to track the most important tracking that is that's actually works for you. For example, what I'm trying to say is, if you want to know how many sales came from your campaign, it would not be possible if your pixel is not set right. If you want to know how many leads came from your campaign, it would not be possible if your pixel is not set right. So what I'm trying to say is, whatever is the most important for you for your business, you have to make sure that you put the pixel. Now, in the previous video, we spoke about putting the pixel that you get from DSP in all the websites, but you have to get to another part. In this case, what you have to do is, you have to, while you are also doing the audience segmentation, you also get to the point where you know what is your conversion pixel. For people who do campaigns in DV360, you will see that you have a separate section called floodlight, where you have, though you put the same pixel on all the website, you still have option to create a segment out of a page. So for example, you can create a segment out of your conversion page, that's the thank you page, and you would know how many people bought your product through your campaign, and that pixel fired. Yeah. Or you can also just target the audience that you create out of the pixel, and then add it to your website, add it to your campaign. This is exact way where you will know how many sales you're getting and how it is attributed to your campaign. This is a common it's more one of the most simple concept, but one of the most important one. um, there was a client whom I was working with previously, had placed the pixel wrong, and the client had a data of 2 years. I couldn't use the data because it was completely based on the pixel. The historical performance of the campaign was working based on the conversion, and it was trying to get conversion based on subscribers. So what happened is, the pixel was placed on the subscription button, and the audiences that were generated, the historical data was completely generated based on subscribers. So we were getting a lot of subscriptions and not exactly conversions, which is the most important part of the business. So if lead form is important for you, make sure that your pixel is set right. I cannot give it give it emphasis enough to understand that conversion is one of the most important thing that you should never uh, you know avoid. Okay, so now when you have your conversion pixel set right, what's the next step? What should you be doing? Your next step would be to get the look back window. Now, what is a look back window? Look out for the look back window. Okay, so your look back window will be set to 90 days by default. You have the option to change it. Why change it? If you have other offline marketing channel running simultaneously and your audience might be influenced to by those channels, then you cannot keep your look back window to 90 days. You have to reduce it to 30 or 14, whatever makes sense to your business. Now, before even talking about look back window, I should tell you what look back window is, right? Okay, let's say a user, there's a look back window of 14 days. A user visits the website and buys a product. Will the advertiser consider that sale as a ad sale? Of course not. Will user views or clicks an ad and buys the product in 30 days? Will the advertiser consider that sale as an ad sale? Not really sure. User views or clicks an ad and buys the product in 14 days. Will the client consider as an ad sale? Yes. Now there is a debate between these two. That's why I said I'm not sure. That what I did show ad to the user, the user converted because of my ad. How is it that I'm not getting the credit to it? There are two concepts regarding that. That's one is lookback window, the other one is attribution model. We'll talk about it in future videos. For lookback window, what you see here is um, if you have different channels running along with the programmatic, if you're running social, if you're running email marketing campaign, if you're also running offline. So for example, if you already have sales going on in your offline store and you really want to know from where it came, the person might have seen an ad 30 days ago on your website, but might have also walked into a store, seen the product, really loved it, but want to buy it online because uh, um, it would make more sense to the customer to buy it online to get exemption from the shipping and stuff. So whatever might be the reason, okay, the person ends up buying online and you still can't take credit for it because plus you never know what actually instigated what actually made the person to buy the product, right? So that's why we have concepts like look back window. That's why we have concepts like attribution model. There's an ongoing debate between clients and account managers that what is an idle window for a product or what's an idle window for my business. It completely depends on what you are selling and how many channels you have in the background. If there are channels and reaching out, they're rightly run, advertising is rightly done by your agency or by your digital marketer, and it is going to the same person over and over again, you never know. Probably the last ad that the person has seen made reminded him or her about the product, and that might have instigated to the sale. But so that's where we come to the attribution model portion. So basically, look back window is the window that you give credit to your paid campaign on what should be considered while considering a view through conversion or a click through conversion or a click conversion. So it requires conversions for users who have previously seen or clicked on ad within a period of time that is specified, called look back window. So that's why this one, if my lookback window is set to 14 days, the last one will be considered as a sale, not this, not this. Okay, so moving on. Best practices while working on a pixel and an audience. Give emphasis to a strategy. Like I keep saying, always give emphasis to a strategy. If your strategy is not right, you would not be able to target your campaign, no matter how pretty your ad is. Give some time for your pixel to collect data. Do not assume that just because you're running a programmatic campaign and just because I said that programmatic really works well, it will work in a day. If you start performing in a day, it doesn't. You have to give it at least a 10 days time. Now I'm saying 10 days, please think considering the fact that you have a very well structured website. Your agency might say longer or your digital marketing might say longer based on what's the current scenario of your website. Um, Place a conversion pixel in the right URL or button. If you place it wrong, your entire campaign works in a wrong direction. Do research in terms of strategy when you implement the lookback window. 14 days lookback window might not be applicable if you're working on a lifetime product like buying a car. Keep checking your pixel report to make sure that your pixel is still in place. You have a couple of the DSPs who give you a pixel report, who or sends you a notification saying that hey, your pixel has stopped working, it's not firing anymore. For DV360, we have something called floodlight report. For ad roll, we have something called pixel mount. So there is some technology or the other which triggers and which tells us that your pixel is still placing or not. Now your question might be, why would someone change the pixel? You see, if you have a developer, if you're changing if you're making random changes to your to your website, there might be uh, an instance where the pixel has fallen off. When you're making changes in your website, you would not really remember that a pixel is placed and a marketing campaign is running in the background. So this might disrupt the pixel, and that's where your campaign stopped working. Now the problem with the campaign is when if you do not let your agency or if you do not let your marketing specialist know about the changes that you have done, uh, the, the the person who is running your campaign would keep thinking that everything is fine unless they go to your website, unless they pull up the report, and they might see a dip in your conversion and would consider it to be a market trend. But after a week, they might find it that okay, so it's not a market trend, it was because the pixel had dropped off. By then you might have already lost a week's time. So if you're doing a major change on your website, ask your agency or ask your digital marketing specialist or your team to pull up a report and find out whether the pixel is still placed on the website or if it's just working fine as it's supposed to be. Okay, now we are going to tie the loose ends. We have our account set right, we have campaigns created, we have ad groups created, we have pixels, no, we have ads created, we have pixels created. You will, if you go to any DSP, you will see that you have a separate place where you create the pixels. You have a separate place where you create the ads, and you have a separate place where you create the campaign. Now, when you're creating a campaign, that's where you integrate the other stuff into your campaign. So, for example, when you create a campaign, and put the other settings, and after you're done with that, you go to the part where you create an ad group. After you're done with that, that's when you align your ads with it. Now, when we're talking about alignment, um, you have to be very careful with the names that you put for your ads, your campaigns, and your ad groups. There are two reasons for it. So, for example, if you name your campaign as just prospecting and you have different ad sets, or you have different ad groups for your campaign, one is selling a hat, one is selling shirts. Now you have two sets of products, hats and shirts. So obviously hats ad goes to hat, shirts goes to shirt. But if you don't put it in your ad group name, you will mess it up. Also, if you might likely create more campaigns in the future. So you, if you don't put days or quarters or months, then that will also confuse you. The date part or the quarter part or the month part comes when you have a robust marketing team who has a plan for you over the year, like across the year. So that's when date comes in. Okay, so the second reason why you should always make sure that your campaign name, ad group, and ad name is structured, because when you open a report, once you can run a campaign, you will definitely run reports to understand which campaign is performing, which ad group is performing. And how would you know which ad campaign and ad group is performing? Because all your ad groups are in your campaign. You have to name it right. If you don't name it right, and if your audiences who should be buying shirts are buying hats, then that's a big mess up. So that's something that you should clearly figure it out how you're going to name it and how it would make most sense when you're putting a report and analyzing what is working for you, what's not working for you. Okay, now flight date means the start and the end date, the scheduling thing that I talked about earlier. So a start and end date you can obviously it will be in future, but start date should also be in future. The reason why we put start date in future is, let's say you plan to launch a campaign today, but you don't have your other attributes with which you will you will take the campaign live. So for example, for a campaign to go live, you need audiences, you need ads. If any one of these are not there, or your pixel is not working properly, then you have to make sure that you put your campaign to a future date. You can always change it to today, but if you set it today and that date and time is gone, you can never change it back. Budget. I have mentioned it earlier as well. If you have a specific budget, you have to build a strategy, make an Excel sheet, make a strategy out of like how much money are you going to put for people who are just aware about your product. How much money you're going to put for people who are interested about your product. How much money you're going to put to people who really definitely wants to buy your product but have not bought it yet. So that's again we are talking about strategy. How much money do you want to put for people who has already bought your product but you want to cross sell some of your items? Yeah. So that's budget. So you have to consider the budget that you're going to put. Also remember that when you're putting a budget, most of the DSPs have a pacing system. Pacing means how do you want the money to be spent? Do you want the money to be spent evenly? When we say evenly, if you're spending 100 rupees today, tomorrow you will spend 100 rupees, next day you will spend 100 rupees, and so on. But if you are someone, let's say around February, you have started a campaign and your sale is, you plan to to keep the campaign running to the end of the month, but you have a sale coming up for the first 10 days for Valentine's Day. What you would like to do is front load it. Why does front load work? Front load meaning you would speeden up your spend on the first few days and then load it for the next few days. In this way, your campaign is still running, but when you speeden up your spend, it doesn't mean that your ad will be shown too many times to a particular user, because we have already restricted that using a frequency cap, so it won't. If you've restricted it to 2, it will just show the ads twice. Increasing the spend would mean you are reaching to more and more users. It's always this is a thumb rule. The more you spend, the more audiences you reach. So if you increase the spend, then that will be beneficial for you when you really want your sales to go high. Okay, about the ad groups. Okay, so this is how the structure would be for your ad groups. Like I said, if you're selling shirts and shoes, then you have ad group 1 and 2 in the first table. But if you're selling shirts and shoes to 2 different audiences, for lookalike audiences and for interest level audiences, then you would have 4 ad groups and not 2. So your naming convention will be different based on that, your audiences will be different based on that, and your ads will be different based on that. Okay, similarly, let's consider the second ad group and their budget. If you have set a budget of 100 and 100 for all these 4 ad groups, then your budget should be obviously will be 400. But let's say if your budget is 1000 and if you set your ad groups to be spending 400 per day, You had been expecting, okay, I'm spending 1,000 per day, but actually you're not. You're spending only 400 per day. So you have to reallocate your budget across your ad groups. So that's one of the most important things that people miss. Bidding. Um, some DSPs does bidding at campaign level, some does it at ad group level. I would always prefer to do ad group level because I have more limit, more control over my audiences. Now there are two types of audience. There are two types of bidding. One is called manual bidding. The other one is automatic. Manual bidding is where you put a specific bid amount to your ad groups. If you remember, bid is a monetary value that you put on your campaigns with which it goes and puts forward in the marketplace. Now, if you have a manual bidding of $5, it goes forward and bids $5 in the marketplace. Automatic bidding generally doesn't do that. It understands your potential impressions across the marketplace and bids accordingly. But you can still decide on how much you're going to spend per 1,000 impressions so that you do not go off the budget that you have had in your plan. So that's manual and automatic. Um, the best practice would be to put manual on the initial stage when you don't have enough users, but once you have enough data, once you don't have enough historical data in your campaign, because automatic depends on data. So because it to understand the potential impressions across the marketplace, it needs data. So you have to give it some time until you get the data. I would generally take 14 days. Once you have done that, you can switch to automatic bidding system. So automatic bidding system looks something like this. This is a screenshot of DV360. This is a screenshot of ad roll. I would focus on bringing more maximized clicks for a prospecting campaign, meaning a brand awareness campaign, and conversions um, uh, for retargeting. But before I go here, I would rather spend some time getting more clicks than in conversion. Same here as well. Okay, we will discuss in details about each and every settings of individual DSPs in future slides. Okay, frequency cap. I remember I told you that when you spend more money, it doesn't mean a user sees more number of ads. If you have restricted your frequency cap, it wouldn't happen. What is a frequency cap? It is restricting the number of times a user sees a particular advertisement. There are sometimes you might have seen an ad which has served around what 5 times per day, and you literally get irritated like, why am I seeing this ad? Yeah. So to get to that point where a user gets annoyed with your user, that's one of the worst practices in advertising world. So you would not definitely don't want that to happen for your brand as well. Keep it a standard 3 frequency caps per day. You can reduce it as well, but standard should be as high as just 3. It should not be go more higher than that. Targeting audiences. Now there are different type of targeting audiences. One which re-engages with people who are in your website, that's called retargeting, and that happens through audience segmentation, which we have discussed earlier. The second one is to bring in users to your website. Whenever I speak about the second one, that's bringing new users to your website, I often see people talking about lookalike. It's just like when you talk about digital marketing, people say, yes, SEO. It's not that. The thing is, prospecting can come through different sources, different ways, and these are that page level category, demographic, interest based, and lookalike. What's page level category? Let's go through them individually. What's page level category? Let's say you are a travel company and you offer field trips or trekking trips. You want to offer that to a tourist who is coming to your locality. Now, there are different ways of doing it. One is to target people who are moving to your to your place. That's one. Second, people who are searching for trekking in your place. Third one is to show ads to people who had been searching for trekking in different websites. So page level category is the third one. Interest based is someone who is searching for trekking is the third one. Lookalike is someone who has already come to your website and who matches the interest. Someone like him is called lookalike. Demographic is much more broader in sense, and that applies only for specific products. I'm not saying you should not use demographic. I'm saying you should use demographic whenever it's necessary. So for example, you might want to add demographic targeting of parental targeting if you want to sell kids products. You cannot sell kids products to kids. You can sell kids products to parents. So your demographic targeting will be parents and not kids. So those are the few things that you should keep in mind. Okay, location targeting. Location targeting goes as broad as worldwide, country, state, city, and if you want a much more granular way, you have zip codes, or you also have radial targeting. Radial targeting works better for restaurants. So for example, today I am in Mehdipatnam in Hyderabad, but if I'm traveling near High City, I might see the hotels, restaurants, reviews or restaurants ads popping up on my mobile, and that would be more useful for me because I might want to stop by and eat something. Radial targeting is also useful, is basically useful for store visits. Okay, and so the next part is day parting. If you have a business where you put a lot of stress onto selling on weekends or weekdays or specific hours on weekdays, day parting is one of the things that you should be looking at. Also for businesses who doesn't have that pattern but have seen that pattern while running campaigns. So for example, the second diagram that you see here, the second report that you see here, you see a pattern here where you see that from Sunday to Monday and Wednesday, there are a lot of engagement happening, specifically on Sunday rather than on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. So people are not really engaging with the brand on these days, but here they are doing it a lot. So I would rather spend a lot of money here than here. And you see here, I have less amount of money spent here. So I wouldn't do that. I would increase my impressions, that is increase my budget here to get more number of click-through rate, and obviously that would mean getting more engagement to my website, and again after that it's your strategy who will get the conversion. So don't think that day parting will always bring you sales. Not everything is sales. It's basically the right marketing and the right audience settings will bring you sales. So finishing touch, assign your ads. Adding the right name to your ad will help you find your ads and add them quicker. Assign your conversion pixel, target your targeting settings, check your bids if they're aligned to your strategy, check your frequency caps, recheck the budget twice. One extra zero and do disaster in your campaign. And that's it. You are ready to go live, and